Welcome to Aviation Careers Podcast. My name is Carl Valerian. Today we have a really special guest, and that's Eric Zipkin, to discuss trends in aviation with a focus on luxury travel experiences and how these experiences will affect the future of air travel. Really excited to have him on because Tradewind Aviation is who he is the CEO of, and a product and a service and an airline that I really enjoy and also recommend highly to many different people. Eric, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Carl. It's great to be here.
You know, before we get started, if you do have questions for Eric or for myself, I'll forward those on to Eric. You can email us at feedback@aviationcareerspodcast.com. And I know a lot of people come here wonder where they can get one of those free scholarships guides. Our sponsor, actually Stratus Financial, is giving away some of those scholarships guides. And you can go to aviationcareerspodcast.com/scholarships and use a coupon code STRATUS. You can find out more about Stratus at the bottom of the show here, but they're really wonderful what they're doing. They've given away over 500 scholarships guides, and really hats off to them. But anyway, going back to Tradewind Aviation. Tradewind Aviation is a really interesting group, but more importantly, we're here with somebody who is very passionate about aviation, and that's Eric Zipkin. And Eric, I think a lot of people may not realize this, but you truly got your start in aviation like a lot of us did, and that's simply at a small airport flying airplanes. So tell us a little bit about how you got started.
Yeah, I was I have been and I always am a general aviation pilot first. I was fortunate enough. My father was a private pilot, and some guys go fishing with their dad, and I got to go flying with him. And so that was really my start. I never thought that I would be in the industry, much less a professional pilot. But one thing led to another, and I finally realized that I was going to the airport every day, so I should probably get paid for it. And that's kind of how I got started in the industry. Really, just answering the phone in a small charter company, and then kind of one thing led to the other, and I realized that in order to really be successful on a holistic basis, needed to really understand what an operation can do and cannot do, so that you're really managing people's expectations most appropriately. So I did the stereotypical thing. I got my CFI, and I went hat in hand, or I should say resume in hand, trying to find a job. This is back in 2001, very different economic environment than is today. And I was probably rejected by every 135 company in the Northeast. And I stumbled across a flight school that had just lost their one and only instructor the day before. And so my job interview was very serendipitous. It was, do you have a CFI? I said, yes. This is how much we pay. Are you willing to take that? And I said, yes. And I said, come on back tomorrow. And it was not just any flight school. It was actually a seaplane flight school. So I was my first flying job in aviation was teaching people how to fly seaplanes at the Goodspeed airport on the Connecticut River. And I didn't have a seaplane rating. I'd seen a seaplane once or twice, but that was it. But I learned an enormous amount in that first summer. Went on to also fly freight and caravans, and then again, like I said, one thing led to another, and here I am as a professional pilot and making my living in that space.
And you took it much further than that. I mean, I don't think a lot of people will go out and decide to start their own airline in a 135. And you've built this incredible brand with Tradewind Aviation. So tell us a little bit about that. I mean, what got you motivated to even get involved in starting an airline? Because most people think, wow, that's a huge endeavor.
Yeah, look. Ultimately, my motivation, in all honesty, started with the aviation part. I'm passionate about aviation. I'm passionate about aircraft, and so it was really about step number one was really understanding how I could be involved in aviation and be successful financially. But at the same time, I realized that the first company that I was working for, this small charter, kind of a mom and pop charter company out of Westchester County Airport, I realized that the clients that they had were were really being poorly served. Their client, they had a very strong business flying, short regional flights, largely out to Nantucket, and the folks were getting into really substandard aircraft with a very inconsistent standard of crew member, and also very inconsistent standard of kind of back office support. The phone, you call, you might get somebody on the phone, you might not get, you might get an answering machine, an answering service, or to tell you how long ago this was, you might even get a pager at that point. So I realized that you had a clientele that had very high expectations, very high standards, and there really was nobody in the market that was meeting those standards. And I think it just, people didn't realize, didn't realize that that's what the market demanded. So, it was kind of building the brand really has followed the service. It really is about providing the level of service and being treated the way that I would want to be if I had a home in Nantucket, or if I were traveling to a business meeting. How would I want to be treated, so that and building an infrastructure that supports that, and the brand follows. The brand really has followed from our ability to do the best that we can, and be the most reliable option in the space.
So you really saw this need in the market, and you followed that. And I think, without a doubt, we can all say that when we're flying, maybe we can see some ways to make that service better, what you've done, and you saw that need and you fulfilled it. But it's easy to say that, but then actually implementing that is something that is not just a one-day affair. It's a constant 24-hour affair, isn't it?
It is, and it's interesting you mentioned that, because we've experienced quite a bit of growth within the company over the last couple of years, really since COVID. And one of my biggest fears has been to keep that personal service intact. In the early days, I was chief cook and bottle washer. I answered the phone, I quoted the trip, pulled the airplane out of the hangar, flew the trip, and put the plane back in, back in at the end of the day. So it was comparatively straightforward to control the level of service. It is, and to continue to enhance it over time. That becomes more challenging when you have, other people that you're delegating that responsibility to. And we have a motto at Tradewind. It's fly personal, and it's about developing personal relationships with everyone. And there's the personal relationship with the client, but that is almost a downstream effect of the personal relationships that everyone has with each other. And we take it personally. We work very diligently to make sure, and we care personally about our the people we work with, and making sure that we are supporting each other, because there is no other choice. When you have a personal relationship with someone, there is no other choice but to support them, and that goes from commercially and all the way through to safety. It really pervades everything that we do, and that passes on from one person to the other, and one generation to the other. We have many generations of Tradewind alum, pilots, maintainers, schedulers, dispatchers, everyone. We have a very large alumni network, and they all almost exclusively kind of come back and pine for those personal days when they had a personal relationship. And I'm very proud of the fact that we're able to keep that going as the organization has grown.
In my opinion, I think that's one of the reasons you've grown so much and have become a leader, if I might be as bold to say, in the Northeast and also in the Caribbean, is because of those personal relationships, not just with the customer, but also with your team members, and that shines through the operation.
Absolutely, absolutely. It is. That's what it's all about. I love airplanes, but we're not in the airplane business. We're in the service business.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, one of the things that I think is really important to understand is that when we're looking at any business, that there's a future in that business, and obviously things change constantly. Not everybody has a crystal ball. I have a crystal ball, but it's not always correct. But there is this future that we talk about, and this future of really of private aviation, business, and more luxury travel. I talk about it all the time. But I would love to hear what you feel the future of private aviation and luxury travel is.
Sure. The as time goes on, more and more people, especially an affluent client, realizes that there is one thing that you cannot make more of, and that is time. And our clients are people for whom their time is more valuable than their money. And there is the quantity of time and there's the quality of time. And as our population ages to a certain extent, as people become more sophisticated in life, and maybe there are more and more demands on our time, people become more and more aware of the value of that time. So that's really to the extent that my crystal ball, and by the way, my crystal ball is in the shop, so my hats off to you for having one that's not being fixed. But the people value their time more and more, I think, as society puts more demands on our time. So for it's not so much as a luxury product. It's become kind of almost a necessity for many people, because the service that we offer allows them to maximize the utility of their time, and maximize the enjoyment of their time. Um, especially also in our space, it's a space that, and when I mean space, the kind of the regional transportation, your 150 to 300 mile range. It's a space where there really has not been good service in the past. It was considered very utilitarian. Certainly, people are thinking about first class if you're flying to Europe or flying to the Middle East or across the country. People think about having high levels of service more quickly. What we really kind of built it, and they came, of providing a higher level of service even on that shorter trip. And it's because that short trip may be just as meaningful, if not more meaningful, to that individual than flying to Paris. So it's by build. I wouldn't be so wouldn't want to say that we created the market, but we certainly took advantage of that realization on our clients' part that luxury and really good service was available in the regional space.
I think too, if I might add, is that it's broadened the market, because that luxury service, or that high service that you're looking at, was more for people that were in private aviation, where the cost was astronomically more. The people that, like in routes, when we talk about that, like in the Bahamas, that would have their own Gulfstream and that type of thing. You're bringing that level of service, personal service, to this group of people that never really have realized that before, and I think that's really terrific.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Carl. I mean, really, this level of service was only available to people flying around in larger aircraft, and the fact is, you can access that level of service even in a smaller, shorter range aircraft. And because it's not about the aircraft, again, I go back to this. It's about the service. It's about the experience arriving at the aircraft, loading the aircraft, deplaning on the aircraft. About having the reliability and knowing that you have there's somebody there to answer the phone, to a depth of fleet to be able to recover if there's an interruption. two pilots to provide um, not only redundancy but service and a greater level of safety. All of these things. These are things that were not, like you point out, were not accessible to the rank to people unless you were in a Gulfstream of some sort, a larger aircraft, and that is exactly it. It's a much larger group of people. It's much more financially accessible.
Absolutely. And hats off to you for that understanding that and fulfilling that market. So with all that said, what are some of the industry trends you're seeing, and how are you fulfilling some of those needs within those trends?
So I think the one of the major industry trends right now is continued increased sophistication on the part of the client, which is wonderful for us. There was a we want people who are asking questions, the hard questions. Hey, what type of airplane am I in? What is the qualification of the crew? What do you have in place to support me, especially in the Southeast? We launched operations out of Stuart, Florida, a little over 18 months ago, and the market in Florida particularly has become much more sophisticated, and so we're seeing a lot that would, and therefore having a higher level of expectation. We're also seeing a market that is, again, as I alluded to earlier, that's much more cognizant of their time, and they're much more willing to spend what it takes to have that time and to have a good quality experience with their time. Um, there is a bit of it's a bit of kind of a dichotomy. The commercial airline experience is at best inconsistent for our clients. And so we're seeing that continue because the traditional commercial airline experience is a bit of a drive to the bottom for customers, for the passenger experience, and that gap is widening, uh, and because of the economics that even the airlines can't control. So we're seeing uh, we're seeing more and more people reach out and say, look, I don't want that experience anymore. What can you do for me?
And I can attest to the fact that that experience has changed dramatically over time, thanks to Tradewind Aviation. I think Tradewind has moved the bar, and just from experience myself, having commuted to the Bahamas since the 1970s, we have seen a huge shift. And by raising that bar, it might be bringing more competition, but right now I don't see it. I still think Tradewinds is the best one out there, just because of the fact that I can attest as a customer that it really
Well, well,
truly is one of the best products out there.
well, thank you. Look, it's expensive. It takes a lot of resources to do what we do. I mean, something as simple as, having two crew members versus one. That's two salaries. Two sets of training. And the again the service providers, the market, they're kind of slow to adapt to that. We when I started in 2001, the market was a little bit like that in the Northeast, and over time the market developed, the clientele became much more sophisticated, and we were at the forefront of that, and we were ready to we were already providing that high level of service, as opposed to many of the other players in the space that were playing catch up. We did the same thing when we moved to the we started operating in the Eastern Caribbean out of San Juan, Puerto Rico. The existing operators really had never been held to a high standard by their customers, because it becomes this kind of almost vicious cycle. There's nothing available, so the customer wasn't holding them to a standard. As soon as the better standard became available, the customer started holding both us, but really the other operations in the space to a higher standard, and we've seen the kind of the bar be raised in all of those places. And again, the same thing is happening right now in Florida, but we're seeing the bar be raised, which frankly, yeah, there's more competition, but it's competition competing on our rules and on things that we can excel at, which is a turbine aircraft, a multi-crew aircraft, an infrastructure that is that has depth to be able to provide extraordinary service. So I welcome the competition on that on that playing field. We don't compete on price. Neither do we choose to do so, but we don't. It's not a successful long-term strategy.
You mentioned a multi-crew environment where you could operate possibly with just one crew member. That kind of leads into the next thing that I'd like to talk about is, working for Tradewinds. And there's this great opportunity, and I do know a lot of people have worked at Tradewinds, have some very positive feedback. Why would somebody, if they're looking, let's look at the pilot side of things. Why would someone consider Tradewind Aviation?
There are many different many different things. I think the most valuable thing from a career development standpoint is the structure. I mean, we really try to manage everything that we do at the same level as a 121 air carrier in terms of training, procedure, support, all of these things. So it's a way to be involved with that sort of environment very early in your career. Most of the folks that we hire, are coming to us from a more entry level type of a flying job. Flight instructor, banner tower, survey, that sort of stuff. So it's a great spot to be. And really be learning that structure and that formality very early in your very very early in your career. So and frankly, airlines, both airlines and corporate flight departments recognize that. We're a gateway partner with JetBlue, which means effectively a flow through into the cockpit of a JetBlue airliner. We're an Aviate partner, which is the same thing with United Airlines. Both of those airlines have recognized the value of the professional value of working of advancing your career at Tradewind. That's all wonderful, but the other element is that it's a pretty cool place to be. As we all know, the pilot hiring market has slowed a little bit, so people's career progression may not be as fast. Somebody's might be with us for several years versus just a couple of years. A couple 18 months ago or so. And frankly, if you want to work somewhere, and you want to work somewhere that's a cool place to work, I say our motto is fly personal, and that means fly personal. That means internally and externally. Flying in many cases brand new PC-12s, which are, as the Brits say, they're a really cool piece of kit. And you're flying to really cool places. Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, in and out of the New York City airspace, San Juan, Puerto Rico, St. Bart's, which we're kind of most well known for. Landing at the 2,100 foot one-way runway, and with the coolest airplane there. And then again in the Southeast, it's a very varied type of flying to really cool places, and in a way but in a structured way that you get the fun and the interaction, as well as the structure. So that's from a pilot standpoint. I mean, the same sort of culture comes, kind of imbues throughout the organization, whether it be maintainers or schedulers, dispatchers, marketing, human resources. And just yesterday, my head of human resources said, "I want more pictures of airplanes." And I said, "But you're not an airplane. You're not an aviation person. You're not a pilot." Says, "Yeah, but they're really cool. I want more pictures of airplanes." And so it's a great career path for pilots. I mean, again, we send a lot of folks to NetJets. I mean, here in the Northeast, it's kind of the hub of Fortune 50 flight departments. I can't name you can't name a Fortune 50 flight department in the Northeast that doesn't have at least one Tradewind pilot at it.
And so basically, you'd skip the regionals.
Exactly. It is. you get the structure of the regionals without being at the regionals. To put it a bit politely, the all of the things that are kind of a necessary evil of the 121 world, those things don't exist at Tradewind. Look, we don't have a cockpit door. You get to interact with the people that you're flying with. The people that you're flying. You are, and if that's the type of person you are, that you like to be in front of people, you like to not only interact with people, but also see the fruits of your labor, not just after you land, standing at the cockpit doors, everybody's, filing out, thinking about, did I order my Uber correctly? But really, feeling that personal, that personal experience, that personal impact. If that's something that you're excited about, then that, you're the type of person that we would like to see at Tradewind, because it's you get to do that each and every day of the that you're out on the line.
And if I might add to that, also, an airline like Tradewind, who is a little more structured in their operation, it actually is very helpful at the major airlines. I teach at the major airlines, and it's nice to see somebody from a Tradewind who's in a structured 135 environment, because many of the 135 environments aren't quite as structured. So what do I mean by that? These crews are working together in a multi-crew environment where they're running checklists, and they're running them by SOP. So when they get to the airlines and to the major airlines, they're used to that operating environment, so that it's not as challenging for them, and I think that's terrific.
Frankly, thank you. I'm glad to hear. I'm glad to hear that it's paying off. But really, it is. It's the working within that structure, and the ability to work within that structure is extremely valuable.
And that's not the only thing.
Guess what?
Cool
it's safer.
Factor. And it is safer. It is safer, and the
safer.
Cool factor. So there's a bunch of it definitely is safer, and that's something that I think we definitely promote. And safety is number one. And having an environment where you're enjoying your job and you're getting great training, you're operating in an environment just like the 121. That's terrific. But also, I think that something that's really important, especially if you wind up being "quote unquote" stuck in an airline, as they say, if you're not progressing, is culture. I think culture is incredibly important. You mentioned something earlier. I think you mentioned Goodspeed Airport. You have something, I think, on your website that talks about this Goodspeed culture. Can you kind of expand on that? And does it relate to the airport?
Well, it does relate to the airport, actually. Interesting. So our company call sign is Goodspeed. Our radio call sign is Goodspeed, and the reason for that is because I got my start flying at the Goodspeed Airport. And way back when it came time for us to get a company call sign, we had grown beyond just a couple airplanes. We the name Tradewind had already been taken, so I sent out an email to everybody that was at Tradewind at the time. It was a small distribution list, but every time I flew with someone, we would fly over the Goodspeed Airport, and I would tell about my experiences there, how much I learned, and how friendly and accommodating, and how exciting it was. So when I sent out the email to the folks at Tradewind, and I said, do you have any suggestions for a name? One of our pilots, who is now a senior captain. Geez, I'm getting older here. A senior captain with a major airline, emailed me, called me actually, and said, you keep talking about Goodspeed. That sounds like a great name for your call sign, and it's so that that's where the name came from, but it really has come to represent that culture of fly personal, and that culture of being inclusive, and being welcoming, of being and at the same time insisting on a very high standard. And it's one of those things that even to this day, people think twice about, almost to a fault. Sometimes they think twice about calling in sick, because they know it's those people, it's those other people that they may throw more work on top of. And sometimes it's almost to a fault. We have to say, no, you're really sick. You can't fly. Don't fly the airplane. It really is it's just such a tight knit group, and one that has such a clarity of purpose and a commonality of purpose.
Well, gosh, Eric, this has been awesome talking to you about this. But from going from grassroots aviation to this grand scale airline that truly is producing a product and a service that shines above most. It's neat to see that you really haven't forgotten about the personal touch and the people that you learned from flying out of Goodspeed Airport. And I think that's awesome. That's terrific. And I think that there's a bright future. So what can maybe you share with us about what's next with Tradewind?
Well, I like to joke that any entrepreneur that says they planned it this way is lying, because it only makes sense in hindsight. I'm being somewhat facetious. I mean, we have been very successful doing what we're doing and focusing on that high touch, high quality, service in the regional space. There is a lot of headroom just doing more. I say more of what we already do, and really introducing people in other markets to our underlying concepts, our premium scheduled service and our private charter service. So like I said, we opened up Florida just a short 18 months ago. I think we can expect to see a lot of growth in that market. We fly to Marsh Harbor and North Eleuthera, Harbor Island, and I think in the more immediate term, we'll see a lot more capacity along those routes, a lot more options along those routes, maybe from other locations in Florida. It's really about incremental, judicious growth in the markets where people really do appreciate what we do. Especially, the world's an uncertain place, and what I can tell you definitely what we are not doing in the future is growing ahead of ourselves and getting out over our skis. The aviation industry, airlines particularly, but really all of the aviation industry, is full of organizations that grow, and they hire until they furlough, and that's just not who we are. Both because it's not good business, but it's also not very fair to people that are working with you. I mean, the people who are going to put some portion of their lives, some significant portion of their lives, at the service of the organization, and to just kind of deal with someone as a it's just a cog to be cast off when times are tough. I can't do that, and it's but so what that means is a little bit slower growth, smart growth doing what we know that we do well, and we continue to do well, is the pathway forward. We have been growing 20% year on year over the last 5 years, so it still seems to be working pretty well for us.
It sure does, and I'm excited about the future for you, and also the future for those that are coming aboard to Tradewind Aviation. Any last comments before we shove off here? I just really think, first of all, what you do in the industry outside of the airlines is terrific. Your involvement in Warbirds, and we've seen the interviews online. You are truly somebody who's passionate about aviation, and I think that also is great to see that within an organization, and that comes through in your culture, and it comes through in your passion for aviation, and I think that's going to continue at Tradewind as long as you're there, and also you can continue this going forward.
Well, I hope to be here for quite some time yet.
We do too. And if you're interested in Tradewind Aviation, there's a really interesting website. It's called flytradewind.com. You can find out much information there. We'll have links to all the different ways that you can find about all the different jobs, et cetera, at Tradewind Aviation. But if you're somebody who's really interested in this, please feedback at aviationcareerspodcast.com. Email us. We'll send it over to Eric, and he'll answer those questions, and maybe even have him back on again to talk about the C-47 and the trips for D-Day, reunions and that type of thing. And I wish we could get into that. That's more of a general aviation podcast, but it is just wonderful to see somebody running an organization that's in aviation and somebody so passionate like yourself. So thanks again, Eric, for joining us.
Well, thank you, Carl. Thanks for having me.
And if you're somebody who's looking at this as a career, possibly moving forward as a pilot mechanic, HR, there's many different things that you can do at Tradewind Aviation. But the most important thing I want you to do is this. I want you to not stop here. When you stop this video, don't stop. Do something right now after you finish this video. Maybe it's writing down something we talked about. Maybe it's listening to another podcast, watching another video. But make sure you take a step every day to move forward in your career and in your life. Go to flytradewind.com, research something new, find out about their culture, about the Goodspeed culture. But make sure you take one step today to move forward in your career and in your life. And I know you will get there sooner than you think. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next episode.